Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
That's right, I said it, and I'll say it again. He's the greatest radio talk show host working today. He, of course, is also the host of Life, Liberty, and Levin, Saturdays and Sundays on the Fox News Channel. And you can meet him in person coming up on August 9th, Saturday at 10 a.m., the Barnes & Noble at the Spectrum at Reston Town Center, where he'll be doing a book signing event. He is, well, simply the best. In fact, let's get his walk-on music going here. I'm actually burying the lead. You also hear him every single night right here on WMAL from 6 to 9 p.m. And he's got a brand new book called On Power. He is the great one, Mark Levin. Mr. Levin, Rabbi Levin, Godfather Levin, thank you for being here.
Wow, can I call back and get that intro again, Larry? Oh, that is just great.
I'm going to tape it. I'm going to send it to Julie so she can play it for you every morning when you wake up. What do you think?
I love Julie's name. It's the name of my wife.
That's right. Don't confuse Julie Gunlock with your wife, please. That'll get ugly.
No.
Mark, congratulations on the book, On Power. I got to ask, first of all, there's a lot in this book I want to ask you about, all right? And one chapter in particular really spoke to me. But this is kind of a departure for you. This is not your typical book that we've grown accustomed to over the years.
No, look, it was either this or On Drugs I was going to write, but I decided On Power.
Well, why not?
I'll tell you. First of all, Amazon is such a joke. We're number one on Amazon. They have us at 248 because they've changed their algorithms. We have no idea what that means. But let me explain it this way. I was holed up for a couple of months in bed, and I was thinking about these things, as I do. And I got to thinking, what was the American Revolution really about? Liberty and so. No, it was about power. In fact, liberty without power is not liberty. It's just a thought. And rights without power are not rights. They're just a thought. And so I started to really delve into this, Larry, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to write a book that's really compact, very heavy, but very understandable, and mostly involves my thinking process and my rationalization process. So I take this thing, power, which is not just a term, it's much more important than that, and I apply it to our founding, and I applied to Marxism and Islamism, and I applied to ancient history and modern times. And so that's how I came about writing this book.
Yeah, and it's kind of a treatise. It's almost philosophical, this book, compared to, like I said, to some of the other books. I want to draw your attention to the chapter that really hit me, and that was on language. And let me, if I may, read the author's words back to him. It's not by mistake.
I think you should read the whole book, the whole show. Go ahead.
Right now? That'd be fantastic. Well, that's great.
Baby.
Yeah, you just gave Bill Hess a heart attack. Thank you.
There you go.
It's not by mistake that class and ethnic warfare, among other forms of exploitation, are employed incessantly by American Marxists. Consequently, the goal is to subvert the civil society and the principles, values, and beliefs on which it was established, corrupt the public spirit and civic harmony, and reject compromise and accommodation. Mark, you just summarized exactly from the media, from pop culture, from academia, what we have been living through for the last 20-plus years.
Yeah, because language is power, power of language, which I call positive language. That is, in a relatively free society, you want to share knowledge, you want to share information, you want to persuade, you want to influence voters, you want to do all these wonderful things. So you advance the human mind and the humankind. Whereas the Marxists and the Islamists, that's not what they want. They want obedience, they want conformity, and they want to destroy Western civilization and destroy the Enlightenment and tear it all down. The American Revolution was about representative government. It was about supporting our society. The French Revolution was about destroying the society. Marxism and Islamism are about destroying our society, and they're absolutely incompatible with our government, with our entire experiment. So the language part is crucial because language controls thought process. All this wokeism is really Marxism. Wokeism is a way of controlling language, creating new words, redefining old words to force people to act and think a certain way.
Mark, you talk about how in the book you talk about how Western societies are not able to comprehend, or they try to deceive themselves about the dangers of Islamism. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing that with France right now.
Mm-hmm.
France is ready to recognize the Palestinian state. This is part of this deception and really kind of a paying them off. Maybe they'll be nice
Mm-hmm.
to us now. Isn't that correct?
100%. France has been conquered. The West is very weak in Europe. Weak is trying to accommodate, Europe is trying to accommodate Islamism, and I write about this in the book. If people understand this fundamentalist Islamism, and the people who write about it, they're scholars and so forth, they will understand that their goal is to destroy the West, not to assimilate in, not to
Right.
accommodate the West. You see it in our own country. France is all but gone. So now you have Macron, who's one of the people who orchestrated this open borders policy. I call this revolution by immigration. And interestingly enough, so do the Islamic scholars. And you can see it in London and parts of Britain. You can see it all over Europe. You can see it now in New York and in parts of our country, in Michigan and New Jersey, as well as Minneapolis. It is spreading, and the West is not prepared for this, which is why I wrote the book also, to explain this isn't about accommodation or assimilation. This is about conquering in the Enlightenment. You see, fundamentalist Islam is stuck in the 7th century. It's primitive, it's barbaric. They kill their own people if they don't agree with their notion on how to practice Islam. They want to destroy all faiths. They want to destroy the West because they believe God is telling them to do that for God, the prophet, to return. And this is what's going on in the Middle East, in Europe, in New York City, all over the world right now.
Yeah, you led me right to it. I want to bring up this Mamdani guy, Kami Mamdani, Pete Buttigieg, who's supposed to be, the reasonable, moderate, soft-spoken, everybody's, brother-in-law, sort of. He said, we, the party, Democrats, can really learn a lot from what Mamdani's been able to achieve, which last I checked, all he achieved was defeating another Democrat in a primary. But I would love for you to sort of expand on the danger and insidious nature of what Mamdani is building there and the weak Democrats who will not stand up to him and call out the absolute distortion of American principles that he's able to communicate.
Well, this is a great point. A couple of points. The Democrat Party today is sort of mimicking the communist parties or the radical left parties of Europe. And how is it doing that? It doesn't embrace the Enlightenment. It doesn't embrace our founding. Our founding was based, read the Declaration. The Declaration is so important. People read it quickly. Follow each word. God is mentioned in different ways 4 different times. Why? Because he's the sovereign. The people on earth, his children, are the sovereign when it comes to government. This is completely rejected by the communists. And for the Islamists, it's their God who rules the earth through Islam. Again, completely different because they don't embrace the Enlightenment. They never went through the Reformation. We did. They did not. And so our founding was based on a fusion of Judeo-Christian beliefs and the Enlightenment. Marxism is based on coercion, period. Islamism, political Islamism, is based on radical Islam fused with coercion. And what you're seeing is that in Mamdani. What is Mamdani saying? What I'm trying to explain in New York to people is he's telling you he's going to steal your liberty. He's going to steal your rights. He's going to steal your free will. When he says, I'm going to control the means of production, that's the pizzeria, that's the plumber, that's everybody else. When he says we're going to take over the housing market, he's taking over your homes. He's taking over your business. When he talks about we're going to have these city groceries, they want to control if you eat and when you eat. Mm-hmm. So I say this has to be redefined, not just we throw around the word liberty and rights, which go in one ear and out the other. This is a power grab. These people are power hungry. And one of the important things I say in the first chapter is for us, whether it was Montesquieu, whether it was the founders, power checks power. 3 branches of government, the Constitution, so forth. For them, the centralization of power controls the people. They wish to lord over us. They don't believe we're the sovereign. They believe they're the sovereign.
We're speaking with Mark Levin. And Mark, we got to take a quick traffic check. Can you stay with us? Because I got more that I want to talk about with this very important book that you've written.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not going to tell you to buy this book. Actually, I'm going to tell you to buy 5 copies of this book. You need one, but then you need to give it to every teenager or college student that you have in your life.
Yes.
It is a good read. It's an easy read, but they will learn more reading Mark Levin's new book on power than anything they're going to learn in high school or college this year.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Continue with Mark Levin here. His book On Power is available today. He, of course, has written 8 #1 New York Times bestsellers. New York Slimes. I apologize, Mark, for that slip up there. I just mentioned Reagan Nationalist, your old boss, through Ed Meese, who, by the way, Mr. Meese, the Attorney General, listens to the show on a regular basis. He's such a great man. So big shout out there. Like Reagan, you often explain these ideas, these big ideas, in a very consumable way so that we can all get it and understand it, and you often lace in history. And your chapter on liberty, you go back to a conversation that you often have in your books with regard to that early tension between Hamilton, Madison, and Jefferson at the founding, where, you know, to get the Constitution completed, they had harmony, but clearly there were some different approaches there. Can you sort of expand on that in terms of how it still reflects today as the almost like a lot of the conversations and tensions with regard to our freedoms and liberties and the role of government continue to play out in Congress?
First of all, I want to thank you both for actually reading the book. Sometimes I do these interviews, and that's near the end of the book, and it's very, very important as I dug into this. The reason why the left loves the play Hamilton, and the reason why he's their favorite, founder, they don't know much about the founding, but they know that, is because it turned out that Hamilton was more into centralized authority in government than most of the others who were at the Constitutional Convention, which would seem odd since he was one of the main authors of the Federalist Papers, and he fought hard for the adoption of the Constitution, the ratification in the states. But nonetheless, it is what it is. And early on, actually, the Constitutional Convention, he was fighting for a permanent Senate, which got almost no support. Then he was talking about a permanent president, maybe, which got no support. And then after the Constitution was adopted, there was a big battle over a national bank, and Jefferson and Madison said, no, the states take care of the banking system. That's not a role for the federal government. And this is where it really exposed itself, because he was talking about implied powers. And Madison and Jefferson say, wait a minute. The text of the Constitution is the text of the Constitution. If you imply powers, you destroy the text of the Constitution. What does that mean? And so the battle over the interpretation of the Constitution started early on. And by the way, Washington sided with Hamilton.
Yeah.
But when Jefferson came in, he reversed course and said, no, they were wrong. It's the expressed language, not implied. And so you can see from there and other parts of the Constitution, a little bit in the weeds, the necessary and proper clause was in there so that Congress would pass laws to enforce its constitutional authority. But now it's been used, necessary and proper, to pass any laws whatsoever. So Congress is now involved in everything. So these two breakdowns early on, we're living with the results of that as well as others. And I explain that again in the exercise of power. Look, every abuse of power is not just Marxist and Islamist. Democracies, little d democracies, the trajectory is in a very bad direction, because the trajectory is in the direction of not individual liberty and shared powers. Every proposal is centralized health care, centralize this, centralize that, the government should this.
Yeah.
And von Mises, one of the great Australian economists, has said, and it's in the book, Americans now talk and think like Marxists, and they don't even realize it.
Right.
And it's true.
Mark, I've never seen your chapter on negative power. I would love for you to talk about, because I felt like I was back during the COVID times trying to get my kids' school opened. And you talk about how negative power is designed to limit individual rights, denude individuals of free will and self-worth and their own aspirations. That is exactly how parents felt during those COVID shutdowns. And so I do recommend this book. This book is incredible. in general, but if you were one of those parents who was fighting that battle, this book is a must read. Talk to me a little bit more about negative power.
Negative power is about, effectively, it's about coercion. And negative power is, again, the trajectory of the West. That's why we have all these regulations and taxation and redistribution of wealth they talk about. And by the way, the redistribution of wealth destroys wealth, of course, because people who create it aren't going to create it if it's taken from them and given to somebody else. So negative power is the power that an authoritarian ruling class uses. It's a power that the Marxists use, the fascists use, the Islamists use, and on and on and on. And I break the book into negative power, positive power, and then I talk about soft negative and soft positive power. Soft negative power is what you see happening in our country today. It's the Democrat Party. Mm-hmm. The Democrat Party, to your point, during COVID, it was mostly blue states, blue cities.
Yeah.
It's like they took the opportunity to exploit and grab as much power as they could. I call this authoritarian democracy. Now, why do I call it authoritarian democracy? Because you go through the motions of democracy. You have voting, you have a city council, you have a mayor, you have a board of super, whatever you have, but they're authoritarian. And they don't embrace the founding principles of the country. They don't believe in it. They may claim they do, but they don't. And when you watch what they do, local level, state level, federal level, less so with Trump, but you understand that's an intermission. What happens is everything is the government's going to do this, the government's going to do that. And every time it does that, in terms of the negative power construct, it's stealing power. Now, positive power is the pushback. Positive power is our founding. It's our revolution. It's our belief system. It's we're the sovereign. And so this idea that the means of production you're going to take, our private property you're going to take, our ability to go to a private grocery store you're going to take our health care, and they always twist it back to the language chapter as if they're doing it for the people or they're doing it for us, when in fact they're stealing our power and our authority. Negative power, to its most extreme, is autocracy.
We could go on and on with Mark Levin, but alas, the radio gods will not allow us. But Mark, you've got an event here in the area at Reston at the Barnes & Noble. It's on August 9th, so maybe that Friday before the event you could come back on and we can talk some more about your book.
Maybe we can. And let me just say this, two things. I can't wait to meet as many people as possible. I picked Reston for a purpose. It's WMAL country. That's my home, WMAL. I hope you'll come. Spectrum, Barnes & Noble. It's a brand new Barnes & Noble, Spectrum Center, Reston, Virginia. It's going to be at 10 a.m. It's only one of two book signings I'm doing in addition to the regular library. That's it. So I hope to meet as many of you as possible. Larry, I'll take you up on that. It's very kind of you. Larry and Julie, you conduct a great interview. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's very kind of you.
Bill has to give you a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to, we're both in the same business. Thank you, Mark. Yes. Well done.
Thanks, Mark.
The book is On Power. Buy it. Buy many of them and share them with all those young people in your life because they're not learning this elsewhere. It's 8:25.